The first time I got 9 strokes, I couldn't sit down, I couldn't sleep on my back. But subsequently, when I received the 7 strokes, I was playing basketball on the day itself that I was caned.
This is Darren Tan, a lawyer who has been on the other side of the law. He's passed through the prison system and emerged after receiving 19 strokes of the cane. His crimes: gang-related activities, drug trafficking and drug consumption. Each warranted 5 to 9 strokes of the cane. Caning is a practice many in Singapore are familiar or even have personal experience with. Whether it's naughty children, rebellious students, or people who find themselves on the wrong side of the law, the question has remained: to cane or not to cane? Caning has been used as a form of discipline and punishment for hundreds of years all across the world. The bamboo cane was used in ancient China as one of the 5 capital punishments. In 18th century Europe, there was birching. And in the Bible, in a city called Golgotha in Jerusalem, there was scourging. The East did it. The West did it. And so did everyone in between. But somewhere along the lines, people turned their backs, pun intended, on caning. And Singapore became one of the last few countries where the rotten stick continues to be used judicially and in homes. Let's begin by taking a look at what offences warrant corporal punishment in Singapore. According to Article 88 of the Education Act 1957, light caning on the palms or clothed buttocks can be applied to male students who break the rules. And according to the Penal Code 1872, caning can also be applied to men who break the law.
Generally, violence against persons, also certain offences that are abhorrent for society, or it's just a matter of state policy. So things like drugs trafficking, vandalism, and even certain immigration offences. For robbery during the daytime, the mandatory minimum is 6 strokes. But if it's nighttime, then it's 12 strokes.
And is anyone exempted from judicial caning?
Women, men who are above the age of 50, accused persons who have been sentenced to the death penalty.
Given the history of caning, it may not come as a surprise that judicial caning in Singapore is actually a legacy of British colonial rule.
Singapore's penal code was originally borrowed, copied, from the Indian Penal Code, which the British-controlled India started practicing in 1862. Till this day, it is still the primary criminal statute in Singapore.
Caning is commonly justified by the state as an act of deterrence, a necessary severe penalty to uphold the rule of law. But this idea has also trickled down to society, as seen in school canings, and also the availability of parental discipline tools. But as attitudes on caning around the world continue to change, have Singaporeans changed their opinions on caning? Let's find out. If you have a child, right, would you cane him or her?
I would say yes, but if it is, out of anger, then no.
Depends if over naughty, over the line, then must teach a lesson.
Absolutely not. One, I don't even think about caning, right? So I wouldn't even think about using caning. I've seen it before, it doesn't really solve anything. That's a trouble.
No, never. When things get wrong, we sit down, talk about it, and try to solve it in a more harmony way.
Yes, then when they were young and when they behave very stubborn and didn't want to listen, but not very hard. And there was always no mark on it.
No, I don't cane my kids because I find that they will become more rebellious and they will become more angry with us if we use this type of approach.
I wasn't caned when I was a kid, so I do not practice caning my kids.
It seems like Singaporeans are pretty split when it comes to the caning of children, similar to the UK and even the US. So, is caning still a practice people perceive as being rooted in Asian culture?
When I speak to my non-Asian friends about it, their form of punishment is, using a hand to slap, using the rattan especially. It's quite an Asian culture, yeah.
Yeah, a lot. I hear my friends also kena cane.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yes, especially the older generation that time.
Yes, both my siblings were caned when they were small.
I think so because I never hear of any Western people will do that to their kids. But then even though if I use force, I think my husband will definitely stop me because he's not the type that will use force, and he's one of the parents that grow up without using cane as the result, and he turned out to be better. Yeah.
It does appear that one's thoughts on caning depends on one's experience with it. Perhaps this link between one's thoughts on caning and their personal experience with it is seen most clearly in Sweden, where all forms of caning has been banned since 1979, based on a UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which was first drafted in 1924. Today, less than 5% of children there are spanked. In any case, it seems likely that caning, at a judicial level at least, will continue being practiced here, acting as a strong arm in a country with one of the strictest laws in the world. And this brings us to our next question. What function does caning still play in our society?
I think at the most basic level is an eye for an eye, retribution. Right? It registers societies or communities' abhorrence for certain conduct. It may also act as a deterrent. So essentially two things, retribution and deterrence.
So does institutionalizing caning make our society any more inhumane? How barbaric is judicial caning in reality?
So on the day itself, the inmates will be rounded up. We'll be taken to the caning venue, and then there will be a medical doctor there to check if we are physically able to take the caning. You are strapped to this contraption. It's like a wooden frame. It's a structure that is intended to hold the inmate in place, and that is usually done by securing your wrist and your ankles to the contraption. Hold you in place when the impact comes, and the impact actually pushes your body forward. Before the caning starts, we would also wear a protective covering, so it's like a padded jacket that is to protect your back, so that only your bottom is exposed to the caner. I've never seen anybody lose consciousness during caning. I think this is also a function of the inmate subculture. It's the whole looking macho subculture. Right after the caning, the medical officer would apply iodine on the wounds, and then it's on the inmates whether the inmates want to subsequently ask to see the doctors about their condition. If the situation requires it, they may prescribe antibiotics. The first time I got 9 strokes, I couldn't sit down, I couldn't sleep on my back. But subsequently, when I received the 7 strokes and the 5 strokes, I was playing basketball on the day itself that I was caned. So there are a lot of factors involved. It depends on the number of strokes, your age, how mobile you are, how well you take care of the wound. Personally, I have not seen anybody who has been traumatized by caning. Sure, it is something that hangs over your head. You know it's coming, but you don't know when. And when it comes, you deal with it, and after the event, you just feel relief. So I guess not much of a mental healing process to speak of. I think Singaporeans are very cultured towards nobody really raised anything about it in prisons, at least. I think most inmates generally accept that caning could be a form of punishment for their crimes, and I think there's general acceptance within the general inmate population in prisons.
So personally, you don't really hold any resentment or ill feelings towards your experience of being caned?
Not at all. Number one, the rules are known beforehand. I knew what I was getting into. And number two, there was due process on how eventually I was sentenced to caning, and it was carried out in accordance with the law. So I have no complaints about it.
While there are measures to make sure caning in homes, schools, and prisons don't cross the line into abuse or unjust violence, perhaps the measures for ethics, civility, or right or wrong isn't as clear or universal, and our opinions are shaped by our lived experiences and the laws, cultures, and norms of where we grew up. What about you? What are your thoughts on this perennial debate?